welcome back to the Hillside once again. And today, obviously, I'm inside. Unfortunately, it's just too cold. It was like 23 degrees this morning. And by the way, happy belated Thanksgiving to all of you in the United States that just celebrated the holiday this past week. And for those around the world, you know, always take time to give thanks for what you appreciate. Now, anyways, what are you going to do this time of year? Okay, if you live in a warm climate, you're probably actually doing more gardening now that it's kind of cooling down. Like a lot of really deep south, maybe you're planting some of your winter cover crops or your winter brassicas and things like that. Whereas up here, no chance, it's dead. Okay, all the plants look super sad this morning. The raised bed, the ones that I was just leaving to kind of go down for compost and all, but it's what it is. But the point of today's episode is getting a soil test, why it's important, why you should do it, and then what happens once you get the results. Okay, so number one, getting a soil test is actually pretty simple, at least where I live. Okay, a lot of states I know offer free services at the universities. You just take about 4 or 5 different samples from your general garden area. It's best to do it in the fall. It's like this is the perfect time because your plants have been growing all season. They've depleted the soil of certain nutrients and things like that. And you're going to test the soil, and they're going to send you back what your soil is maybe lacking. Okay, so that way in the fall you can start adding, whether it be manures or compost, or if you want to use fertilizers or limes, something like that. You're going to be able to tell that in the fall, so you get the whole fall to prepare the ground for the spring. For the logic that if you do put it in early in the spring, it may not have enough time to be incorporated. It's not going to get rained on, snowed on, freeze thaw, depending where you live. At least that's what I have to deal with up here. Zone 6, 7, right on the line there. East Central United States and all. But yeah, so it's really simple. You just get a couple samples of your soil, mix them all together, send it off. They do their laboratory testing for free. Okay, now last year I did a free version, and it gives you just it's free, but it gives you just the basics. You get the pH, the NPK, calcium and magnesium, and also your phosphorus saturation percentage. Okay, that's all you get for free. But this year I wanted to get more of the micronutrient, macronutrient analysis. So for $5, I got the garden soil here, Hillside Garden. Got that soil tested, and I also at the Hillside Farm I took a sample up there just to kind of see where I'm at, because I mean, obviously this is garden soil. It's on a small scale. Of course, it's black and it's full of compost and very rich. All the years I've been adding stuff to it. But up at the farm, like you saw if you've been following along, it was just an old hayfield, and it's now turning into a market garden. Maybe that's not the right term, but eventually it's progressing towards actually producing crops to take to a farmer's market and/or direct sale to restaurants. So I'm working on that. So for the time being, I just wanted to kind of get a baseline and kind of compare the two. So if you have a home garden and you have an old hayfield, just to see if there is any stark differences or what some of the big differences may or may not be. And the results may be shocking to you. Hopefully you don't mind me reading off the paper, because there's absolutely 0% chance I'd be able to remember any of these numbers without pausing and editing, and I don't want to do that. Okay, so anyhow, what do you get when you get a little bit more of a soil test? Like I paid $5, like I said, for each one. Not only do you get the things I told you beforehand, you're also going to get the aluminum, copper, iron, manganese, sodium, nickel, and zinc levels, as well as some other, they give you some recommendations. They'll tell you, like, hey, I want to grow corn next year in this plot, and they'll say, well, based on your results, and you want to grow corn next year, we recommend you add this many pounds per half acre of lime, or how much of this, or something like. So you'll get a little bit, personalized kind of advice depending on what you have and what you want to use it for. Okay, so keep that in mind. It's not a one size fits all. It's just kind of a little bit more tailored when you pay the $5, as opposed to the free version, which I think only gives you liming rates, just the amount of lime they recommend you put on the soil, if any at all. Okay, we typically have slightly acidic soil here, so the lime's going to help raise that pH a little bit. Some crops just need more of a basic soil as opposed to acidic, so that's just the very basic understanding what you need to just go with. Okay, so anyhow, enough talking. Let's get down to the results. Okay, so we'll go ahead and start with the old Hillside garden soil back here. And if you followed along, not this year, but the year before, I had pepper plants that were 8 feet tall. They were ghost peppers. They were just enormous. I had just amazing production of all peppers. And I wanted to see if maybe there was something that stood out on my test that maybe separated it from the other soils, that just say, hey, maybe that's the key, maybe that's the trick about why or how there's a certain element that may be more excessive here. That's actually going to be what helps you with the larger pepper plants, so who knows, right? But anyways, Hillside Garden, pH 7.0, okay? With a lot of compost over the years, it's going to be a very neutral, which it is neutral, 7.0 pH, and I mean, they don't. It goes 7.0 or 7.5 or 6.5. It's not like going to be down to 7.003. You're not going to get anything crazy specific. So you just know you're going to get a rough estimate. Okay, so it might have been like 6.96 or something, but they rounded up to 7. It could have been 7.06. There you go. I mean, just use it as a reference. Okay, don't make it a hard and fast rule of law. Okay, phosphorus, potassium. Okay, so basically their words were excessive, highly excessive, I think is exactly what it says. My calcium level, way excessive. It came in at 3,930 parts per million. Okay, that's a lot. That's way up there. Which I've consulted with some soil people, and they said a lot of their compost that we're bringing in horse manure, like I do a lot, is going to be leading to the high levels of calcium. So I need to cut back on that a little bit. Magnesium, off the charts high. My phosphorus saturation rate is at 54%, which is insanity. Yeah, and why is that important for the home gardener or just the commercial farmer? Okay, break it down real quick. Phosphorus saturation. A lot of industrial ag, they use a lot of synthetic fertilizers, things like that. Okay, they till, they have huge broad expanses of just, plowed up ground. It rains, you get a lot of runoff. Not only losing your soil, you're going to wash away the fertilizers in the soil, which leads up to high levels of potassium to get into the waterways, cause a lot of bad things to happen. So they always tell you on this, make a plan to avoid, phosphorus contamination. In my little garden here and in the backyard in the pallet garden, I'm not overly concerned because it's a small area and it's just my home garden. I don't have erosion. I don't have a lot of runoff. So keep that in mind. If you have a very large garden, it's like exposed, you're tilling. If you have a very high level of phosphorus saturation, do plant like a buffer, like a green strip or something, or some cover crops, or leave just some kind of a catchment that's actually going to help leach out some of that phosphorus and keep it out of the waterways. Okay, guys? That's very important. But yeah, when I saw that letter, oh yeah, another thing too, when you get through these results, you know who else I send them to besides the customer? Yeah, to the county soil agency apparently. So they're probably got me on some kind of watch list or something. I don't know. Probably gonna get a random knock on the door about being a phosphorus offender. That's a word. I don't know. Anyways, aluminum, high, but it's not anything stupid. Copper, right in there. These are very low percentages, 4.6 parts per million. I mean, you're talking very small. These little trace elements are definitely going to be something that all plants need, and they actually will function with various parts of the plant. And copper actually is good for lignin production. Okay, lignin is the process of lignification. Is the case when you go from the softwood and turning it more into like a shrub or like a tree. Like you get a little green sapling develops wood. That's lignification. Lignin, copper aids in that. Pepper plants. If you've ever grown a lot of pepper plants towards the end of the year, they have a nice woody stem on them. Lignification. So maybe that high level of copper, not excessive, but it's good level of copper. That's what's going to help the pepper plants form a nice strong trunk and branching structure and everything. Stronger plants, bigger plants, taller plants, more peppers. You see the picture here. Okay, this one here, iron, 170 parts per million. I'm guessing it reads up in the higher levels there, like way above what's necessary, etc. Iron, good level of iron in here. Plant respiration, iron in your blood, hemoglobin, etc. How you travel oxygen through your body, same as a plant. Okay, so the plant's going to be able to respirate well. It's going to have a strong foundation. It's going to be just able to do what it does. Manganese, not anything excessively high or low, so it's a good number. It's not like crazy low or crazy high. Sodium, a little bit high, not really. That could just be from bringing in the compost or something like that. But it's not high, it's not low. It's right there in the neutral zone there. Nickel, 0.2 parts per million. It's very, very low. It's a very, very limited trace element anyway. So the plants aren't going to be. It has enough there. I don't really feel like I need to nickelize my soil. I just made that up on the fly. But this one here, zinc. Okay, zinc, 34 parts per million. Now this is a really high number from what I gather. Zinc is basically a plant hormone, a growth hormone regulator. So of all the things that stand out, the zinc has a high level of nutrition that the plants are going to have. Maybe. If you know more than me, which you probably do tell me if you have done any research on this. I would be really impressed, or I really just want to know. Okay, so if you know any actual knowledge on the zinc and the effect of growth hormones and making your plants get bigger, please leave some comments down below after you subscribe, and then we'll talk about it. I really want to hear your opinions on that. However, so why do I have a higher zinc concentration in the compost, or the soil in general? As it turns out, pumpkins. Okay, so pumpkins are a great source of zinc in the compost. Okay, so pumpkins being used as a fertilizer for peppers, I am a huge advocate of that. So I grew over 100 pounds of pumpkins. I made a video about that right before a couple weeks ago that I did use for making Thanksgiving some homemade pumpkin pies, which were amazing, by the way. So definitely grow you some edible pumpkins, not the little orange jack-o'-lantern things you can't eat. Okay, so the actual eating pumpkins, you want to grow those. Anyhow, putting those directly into your compost after I take all the shells and all the excess seeds and things like that, put them in the compost. Maybe that over time, so I've grown pumpkins every year and I've made tons of pies, but I think maybe the pumpkin compost over the years has helped get a higher level of zinc, and maybe that's helped with the plant hormone getting such big, healthy, strong plants. That being said, so what I have here, the results for the Hillside garden, everything says that it's excessive, okay? I'm a huge advocate of compost. I make giant compost. I have a giant compost pile out back that I was going to spread on my garden this fall. After I got these results, just to kind of see before, I wanted to make sure I got the results of the soil and not like as the amended soil, right? So I think I'm going to back off this year. I know it's going to be difficult. I'm going to probably go through some kind of withdrawals, so bear with me. Might be some crazy videos coming out. I don't know. Just made that up. Anyway, so I'm going to not add a lot of compost at all, okay, this year to my gardens. I might even turn the soil over a little bit, which I don't do. I mostly do the no-till, no-dig kind of method, but maybe this year will be the year. I'm just going to kind of turn it, kind of get the soil mixed in, and just let it go, okay? I put a cover crop on, I think some clover, so I'm just let it go. I always mulch with some leaves and stuff in the fall. I rake up off the yard onto the garden. I'm not going to go excessive. I'm not going to haul in a bunch of horse manure this year for the old Hillside garden. The compost I do have, I have made some more raised beds. You probably saw those videos. If you didn't, do check those out. They'll still need to be topped up. I'll top dress all the raised beds and things like that. And just kind of use my compost that way, because I have tons more organic matter that's been, from harvest from all the flower beds and all the stuff that's, the garden waste. I am still actively composting that, and I gotta have somewhere to put it. So I'm not gonna let it just go to waste or just completely decompose, which is fine because it's gonna go back into the soil and it's not a big deal. But I don't want to go through all the effort just to watch it go away. Okay, so there is the home garden. It could be very common for the home garden to be excessive in nutrient levels because, like I said, you have a small area and you're adding a lot more organic matter than you probably think in reference to what your plants are actually using, okay? Unless you have a humongous, garden, you need to put tons and tons of actual materials onto it. So maybe if you have too much, you can actually lead to what's like nutrient lockup, I think that's what they call it, where it's just so much that the plants can't actually use it properly, and it's actually worse for your plants than it is for having, too little, right? So this year I'm gonna let it go, grow all the plants as usual, and then have another soil test next year at this time to see how much the levels have dropped down, and then to see if, anything needs to be altered at that. But right now I think these results kind of clearly show that the garden is super healthy. has tons of nutrition in it, and the backyard Hillside garden, I grow some awesome plants. Just saying, please do follow along and check that out. So now, for the Hillside farm, I'll go through this really quick because it's just going to be comparing apples to apples. You kind of got the gist of what I was going to talk about with the gardens out back here. So, and just looking at the numbers just side by side, it's kind of like you look at the numbers for the farm, you're like, man, these are horrible, but they're really not. Just looking at the Hillside garden over here on this side, these numbers are just so freaking high off the charts that it makes the farm look like it's not even worth mentioning. But let's just go with it. All right, so first off, real quick, pH 5.5. It was an old hayfield. It gets a lot of rain up there, more pine trees, more typically acidic soils, which is good for my blueberries up there. So 5.5 is kind of high, so I still need to work on bringing it down, but the blueberries up there are doing fantastic, so that's good for that. Phosphorus, I'm not a phosphorus offender on this one. It's only at 3% saturation rate, well within the scope of normal. Calcium's a little bit high still, 830, but that's just naturally how our soil must have a higher level of calcium. I didn't really add a lot of manures and things like that this year because it's just not practical on such a large scale like that, and that's what I'm talking about. In the home garden, you put a wheelbarrow of rotted horse manure on your garden, you're adding 3 or 4 or 5 inches over a small 25-foot garden bed or something. When you have a big farm, it's really impractical. When you have 10,000 square feet, you will spend all day spreading manure, and you better have a truck and a tiller because doing that by hand, I've done before. It's back-breaking and it will wear you down. Okay, especially when it's hot. What anything stand out as far as at the Hillside farm? Nothing really. The aluminum was at 510 as opposed to 190 here, so the aluminum level is higher, which this is more like a native soil comparison, but even though it's not even in the same county, so you're not really comparing apples to apples. Anyhow, this is just a nice baseline I have for the farm where it's at this year. I have cover crops planted. I will actually amend this one. Maybe I'll take a bunch of the compost here and bring it up there, which would probably be a much better use for it once I get to that point. But like I'm saying, very important, get yourself a soil test. You don't know what you might have. Had I not got this, I just would have kept just dumping on the compost and the fertilizers up here at the garden, and it'd be even more off the charts, okay? And maybe I will experience worse growth because it's too fertile, which is not something I ever really considered before. So now I really need to think about it. One last thing, and I'll wrap it up. Boron. Okay, for both of my soil tests, the soil agency at the university said I needed to add boron to my soil. I guess our soils here are naturally low in boron. I've never added boron as an element to the garden. Like I said, would never have even thought that as a thing that I should have to go do. So this year, I'm going to do some research, find the products, and I'm going to add some boron probably this fall. Let's give it a chance to soak in, the rain, snow, freeze, thaw. It's just going to work itself in. And then go from there. So hope this was a good enough video for you guys just to kind of explain what I got with my soil results. They're going to be different for you. They're going to be different for everybody else. I do recommend you pay the extra $5, or if it's $10 in your state, maybe your university, they charge more or they do more extensive tests. This is just the one I got, which is fine. And there was even another level I could have paid like $5 more and got like organic matter content and the electrical, the positive, negative ion charges and all kind of stuff like this, which, if you're going to be a successful, big time commercial farmer, you need to know everything because that's your livelihood. If you're doing a small garden, like I said, you see the results, you're probably going to be good on the elements, okay? Except for boron, as it turns out. So, yeah. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys. I know this was a bit long-winded and probably not the most entertaining video, but it's probably one of the more important videos I made in a while. Okay, so while you're freezing in the wintertime, or if you're lucky enough to be someplace that it's still warm, or if you're in the southern hemisphere, just starting with your soil gardening for this season, maybe it's not too late to get your soil tested unless you've already really fertilized it and it'd be really misleading. So just keep that in mind for whenever it's your fall, you're into your growing season, and then give her a shot, get it tested, and really look into the results, do your research, find out what it is that your soil needs, and you'll be much better off. You'll be happier and have more success in the garden, and that's what we always want, right? All right, guys, so from the Hillside garden, from this cold, gray November day, Thanks for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already. I'll see you next time with more informative garden content coming to you all fall because growing season is 365. All right, guys, until then, bye-bye.